Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 260 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I had numerous fraternity brothers that were drinking alcohol on a daily basis in college. And you know what? The bars near our campus played into it. They were advertising cheap drink specials every night of the week. There was a different drink special. So with the increase that we're now seeing today in binge drinking during the pandemic, I think it's more important than ever to talk about alcohol abuse prevention and how we can partner with our entire community to make that a reality on college campuses. So I am super excited for our next guest. Our next guest is Andrew Culkin. Andrew, his wife of 25 years passed away in February of 2020 due to alcoholism. And Andrew realized that he needed to find some purpose to her nearly 2 decades of slow decline. And he found himself on a mission to help other families understand the disease and find help for their loved ones before they become chronic. And he has both the unique perspective and a no-nonsense approach to dealing with this horrific disease. Now, understanding and identifying the disease in the loved one is the key first step in recovery. Andrew can help in identifying denial and educate families in dealing with this disease that plagues all of us. Andrew is also the author of a book called Amanda, a Cautionary Tale. He has spoken at several rehab facilities in Southern California as a guest speaker, and he's been an insurance broker for the last 30 years with several major Fortune 500 companies. Andrew is dedicated to helping families understand, identify, and cope with the alcoholic and mentally ill loved one in their family. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You know, I am so glad that you're on the show so that way we can talk about this incredibly important topic. I think it's critical. And so I'm so blessed that we met and we can share this story here. Let's take our listeners all the way back to your college experience. You decided on the University of San Bernardino for your undergraduate experience. So I'm wondering what made you choose that particular institution, because you probably could have gone to any school in California.
I could have gone to a lot of different schools. In fact, I think the motivation behind it was I was tired of freezing my ass off in New York. I grew up in upstate New York. It was a very conservative area. It was very Catholic. I needed a new space. I needed a new culture. And I don't think you can go farther away than upstate New York than Southern California. And I think I was able to go to, San Bernardino and Santa Barbara. And this is how ignorant I was. I looked at the map and San Bernardino looked like it was close to the ocean. And, you know, I think what finally gave me the idea to come here, I got a brochure and there was a really pretty girl on the brochure. And I said, well, wherever this girl is, I'm going there, you know. and it changed the entire trajectory of your life just by little. You know, when you're 19, you make decisions like that.
Sure.
But, you know, it got me to California and, you know, I've never looked back.
That's
always been
fantastic.
happy to go there. Yeah.
I totally get it 100%. As somebody who went to school at the University of Buffalo in upstate New York, I know something about the winters, you know, in upstate New York that are absolutely atrocious. The people are great, but the weather, oh my God, is absolutely atrocious. And then you go to places, you know, I went to go visit you know, places like Santa Barbara, for example, beautiful college campus. I mean, the weather is fantastic. The beaches are the best in the world. I mean, just the people watching. I mean, everybody is beautiful. And so I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. And San Bernardino was a total culture shock. I mean, I'd never even seen palm trees. When I first came out here, I thought, how exotic palm trees. I mean, now they just look like weeds, but, you know, back, you know, it was my first indication. And driving through a desert from Vegas, it was 300 miles of nothing just to get here. Amazing time.
Yeah.
But San Bernardino was very much a desert town. It's not the most I wouldn't say it was a college town by any stretch, but it was a good first step to get into California at the least.
Yeah. Well,
I was
it got you to California. It got you to
got
the
me to
right place.
California. That's really all I wanted to do to begin with.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, I led with this in the intro, and I know this is a really difficult topic for
Right.
a lot of our listeners, but I think it's important to talk about it because your wife of 25 years passed away in February of 2020 due to alcoholism. So tell us about your relationship with your wife. Talk to us a little bit about that slow decline that you started to notice.
Well, in the beginning, see, we met at work. We were both insurance brokers, in fact, which is probably the best way to meet someone. And I think we were both 30 when we met. Initially, her family was from Canada, and there was a lot of French background, and she used to drink wine every night. A bottle almost every night. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was kind of a family cultural thing. And I had really no understanding that she was creating a habit that she had created, even before she met me. And it was an issue, even in the beginning. But it was her way to cope with her day. Every day she would come home and she'd pop open a bottle of wine, a bottle of Chardonnay. And the 0.75 bottles became 1.75 bottles eventually. And then, she got, later on, the wine turned into anything. It just turned into anything when she became a full-blown alcoholic, But slowly, I really had no understanding. In the early days, I bought my first house and I had a wine collection. I had traveled to like Northern California and I'd been to Europe, and I bought I wasn't even a wine connoisseur. I was just a collector. And I had this collection of wine. I had about 50 bottles and a rack. And I was just kind of like, it was like a conversation piece for me. And within a year of being with Amanda, the entire collection was gone, which was a pretty serious indication. But I didn't understand what alcoholism was. And she was still able to maintain. She maintained for another 20 years before she really became completely out of control.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So talk to us a little bit about how alcoholics directly affect their family and loved ones. I mean, how did that impact you?
Well, it impacts you in every way. I mean, where do you begin? It affects your interpersonal relationship, your sex life. It affects who you're around. It affects how many children you have. We had one child. We probably could have had more. I think it affected her ability to have children. Ultimately, looking back, I didn't know it then, but it definitely affected that. A lot of your friends go by the wayside. They don't want to be around you. They don't want to always have to drink when they come over. It affects your social life. It affects your family. Not in the beginning, but in the last 10 years, I was afraid to take her home back to New York to my family because she would clean out the liquor cabinet, my dad's liquor cabinet. It was, there's a lot of embarrassment, codependency, a lot of things I have to do to get through the day, had to do to get through the day just to save face, make excuses for someone for not being there. There's a million stories. And then the DUIs later on. She had 4 DUIs. You're incarcerated. She was incarcerated a number of times. There was one point where the lawyer, they gave her 90 days. It was her 4th DUI. And and he was like apologizing because, we're going to lose the case. She's going to have to go for at least 90 days. I'm going, but can you put her in for at least a year? That's the only thing that's going to save her life. And these are the kind of decisions that you have to make. And I mean, as far as affecting a relationship, it affects every aspect of it. With my son later on, I actually had the conversation, do you think I should stay with your mother? He said, Dad, do whatever you have to do. I'll support whatever you have to do. My idea was to keep the marriage together until my son graduated from high school. I wanted him to have a childhood, at least. And then once he went to college, and that's when I started making preparations, I put her in her last rehab. It was her 7th rehab in January of 2020. And I was actually I had a plan. She was going to go there, then she was going to go to a sober, excuse me, she was going to go to a sober living facility for 6 months. And then I was probably going to serve her papers at that point. So that was, and we had been married for 25 years at that point, a little over about 25 and a half years at that point. But I had to find a way out. And unfortunately, in her 7th rehab, she fell down a flight of stairs at the rehab. She'd only been there about 12 hours. And she was in Los Angeles, and they took her to UCLA, where she was there for about a month. And I mean, they gave there was 12 operations. They kept going in to try and find all the problems that she had. She had cirrhosis of the liver. Her intestines were failing. Her heart it had affected her heart, almost every organ in her body, really. And there was a lot of infection, and they had to keep going and cleaning out the infection. So they literally just kept her open for almost a month. Like every 2-3 days, they'd go in and clean her out. It's a horrendous way to die, just a horrendous way to die.
Oh my gosh, what a sad story. Oh my
goodness. And the bill for it is crazy, because I mean, $3.5 million her last 28 days at UCLA Medical Center. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Give you an example. Rehabs are 30 to 40,000, and an average rehab, you can go to Malibu and they're like 65,000. So there's a big expense attached to the disease itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about that. They think about alcoholism, but they don't think about the rehab, the health concerns like you talked about, the hospital bills, all of those things. The other thing that concerns me a great deal is we saw this 25% increase in binge drinking during the pandemic, when everybody was essentially in isolation. What do you think? I mean, from your perspective, what are some of the reasons for that big increase in binge drinking?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. People, instead of children going to school, the parents are going to work. They're all in the same place. Mm-hmm. That adds a lot of stress. People are losing their income. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their businesses. People who are already susceptible to mental health issues. It only exasperates that problem. Isolation. People are isolated. They can't go see their friends. Everything was shut down. One of the things that really bothers me is the grocery stores were open. All the liquor stores are open. You can't close the liquor stores, because people would probably break the windows down if you 25% increase. The death rate is between 20 and 35,000 additional deaths because of COVID-19. Over 80,000 additional liver failure. I mean, there's the health risks go on and on and on, and it's only going to get worse. It's getting worse, actually. Mm-hmm. Suicide rate among college students has increased 2% as a result. Same for the same issue.
Yeah.
Same issue.
Yeah, we're seeing anxiety and depression is really mm-hmm. kind of off the charts right now within college students. So give us some ways that we can identify alcoholic tendencies, let's say, within the college student population.
Well, the first thing is habit. When you're creating a habit, most people start their alcoholic career between the ages of 13 and 18.
Right.
And it's the whole problem is if you're susceptible to it. I mean, you might have already had a grandparent, a parent who's an alcoholic. This makes you susceptible. There's something in your DNA already that makes you a candidate. But it's the habit. An alcoholic officially is for men, it's like 6 to 7 drinks a week, which a lot of people will think that that's low in college. Mm-hmm. The average alcoholic is drinking every single day. And I had friends in college that were at risk, and you could tell them they're at risk, but there's also a lot of peer pressure to drink when you're at that age. It's cool to drink. And it's not just alcoholism. It's, in fact, when I was at the family weekends at the rehab facilities, most of the kids there, and I say kids between the ages of 18 and 25, they were there for heroin addiction, which is even worse. Heroin addiction, you can become addicted to it the first time you try it. It isn't this long long process.
Mhm.
But the recovery is the same kind of process. You have to go to a rehab facility.
Mhm.
You know.
Hmm. Now, if I said to one of my fraternity brothers who I knew was an alcoholic, I mean, there were guys that would easily be drinking a 6-pack every single day. So, what are some creative ways that we can respond when we see a close friend, a fraternity brother, a loved one is clearly an alcoholic, but they're in denial? How can we respond to that?
This is the big myth of alcoholism, is that you really can't. It has to be the self-actualization of the person, because in the reality, when you become an alcoholic, you're not going to have any friends. There is no creative way to say, oh, you're an alcoholic, other than a conversation. But the alcoholic's not going to adhere to that. They're not going to understand it until they're ready to understand it, especially someone who is early on in their career, until they've created enough havoc in their life, until they've met a rock bottom. They're not going to be able to admit it to themselves unless they're very, very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
A true alcoholic, they're not going to end up with any friends. The only friends they're going to be surrounded with are other alcoholics, people who feed the addiction. There is no creative way to help someone.
Wow.
Other than facing it, and then you're going to get a lot of resistance. You're going to create resistance if you identify someone as being an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. What do you think an alcoholic would have to say if they have any chance at all at recovery?
They only have to say one thing: I'm an alcoholic and I need help. Until they're ready to make that statement, and not just to say it. I mean, to really mean it. It doesn't mean anything until they take action on those words. Anyone can just say, I need that. But if they truly have made a breakthrough to realize that they have created enough havoc in their life, and they're willing to go outside their comfort zone and seek outside help, because no alcoholic can do it on their own, any more than a cancer patient can cure themselves of cancer. Okay, you've got to get the help. But until a person says, I'm an alcoholic and I need help, or they need to go to a rehab facility and do it on their own and do it voluntarily and be enthusiastic with it, not being dragged there, not doing it just because they were told to do it, doing it for the right reasons, until they have faced the self-actualization of, I have a serious problem and I need to do something about it. Until they say that, they're lying to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's also a lot of stigma that's out there in society about getting treatment. A lot of people don't talk about alcohol abuse or drug abuse in their families because they really keep it inside the family. They don't want to bring shame on the family by talking about that publicly. So what are some things that society needs to understand in order to help with an alcoholic's recovery?
This is one of the biggest themes that I want to come across, is that we have to have a different viewpoint of alcoholics. The person who's falling down drunk, we find that's funny. In my opinion, the person is screaming out for help. Really, we don't laugh at people that have Down syndrome. Why are we laughing at these people who are falling down drunk and have all these problems? It's a mental health disease, and we have to understand it as a mental health disease, and we have to identify it as a society as a mental health disease. And we have to have better ways to help these people. Putting people in a rehab is just the beginning. I could talk about rehabs for a while. That's just the beginning. That's a Band-Aid. Someone goes away for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. That's great, but there has to be follow-up once they get out. There has to be checks and balances. There has to be some kind of accountability when someone leaves a rehab. If they don't, they're just going to go back to the way they were. And AA meetings or something similar, some kind of support group, has to be taken into account. It's going to be a lifetime commitment to one of these groups. And that's the only way. It's the only way you're going to ever save somebody.
Yeah. I mean, Amanda was at 7 of these rehab facilities. When someone goes into an inpatient rehab facility, talk to us a little bit more about some of the pitfalls of going to a rehab facility. What are some of the expectations while you're there? What are some of the expectations after you leave a rehab facility?
Well, again, the person has to be going to the rehab for the right reason. Some of the reasons why I put Amanda into a rehab was, quite frankly, I wanted to go. My parents were getting old, and I wanted to go to New York for a vacation, and there's no way I could take her. So the only way I could go is if I put her in a rehab facility, so I would know that she was safe. I wouldn't have to worry about her, because she was at the point where if I left her at home, I'd probably come home to a disaster, and I did many times. I mean, I'd come home to somebody that would quite possibly be dead. They'd probably kill themselves if they were home alone. So some of those rehabs, she went into the rehab for the wrong reasons, or she didn't go in with the right attitude. And certainly the biggest problem with rehabs is the follow-up. They'll just give you a list of AA meetings to go to, and you voluntarily have to go to these AA meetings. And if you don't, which most people don't, what was the point of going to the rehab to begin with? Most of the rehabs that Amanda went to, she was fully passed out on the floor within 2 to 3 weeks after a rehab. And it was so frustrating, so frustrating. I mean, those were very difficult times to go through that. The other thing is you have to get a sponsor. She said, "Oh, I'm going to get a sponsor. I'm going to get a sponsor." You have to go to the meetings. You have to do the work. It's just like, if you have heart disease, you have to lose some weight. You have to work at your disease. You have to work at getting better. There's no magic pill. One of the things about an alcoholic is you're going to be an alcoholic until the day you die. Until the day you die. It's just how you manage it is going to determine which way your life is going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like that sponsor is really, the key to all of it. The key to staying sober, and the key to working on this, like you said, for a lifetime. It's not we go to a rehab facility and suddenly we're cured. This is ongoing. I mean, this is for the rest of your life. You're constantly working at it, working with the sponsor, and staying clean.
The people in the rehab, you build relationships within. One good thing is you do build relationships in the rehab. She had very good friends that actually were successful at becoming sober. Mm-hmm. And I liked her keeping in touch with these people. But I mean, one incident, for the last time I went to New York, she went to a rehab in Palm Springs, and I met her friend in New York. She lived in Rochester, so I visited my parents. We actually went out to dinner with her and her husband. At dinner, Amanda ordered 3 glasses of wine, and her friend from the rehab had water and soda. Mm-hmm. And it was a very, very obvious, it was a very obvious that she had these relationships, at least. Yeah. Even though she never did have a sponsor, you need to have an accountability partner. Yep. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that accountability partner is the key to success in just about anything that you have to work at over an extended period of time. Right. So yeah, great advice. And thank you for sharing that story. I know that it's not easy for you to talk about Amanda and the relationship and what happened. But I think the more you talk about it, I think the more that it serves as a cautionary tale to some of the young folks that are listening here, college students that are starting that habit in college. And if they can break it in college, then maybe we have a fighting chance. But they have to hear stories like this to understand the impact that it has over a lifetime.
Right. Well, one thing I want to say about Amanda is that, I mean, she was a very successful person too. She was not like she's a street person, Yeah. I mean, we had a successful broker. She was one of the best salespeople I've ever met. She had the ability to light up a room. She had these bright blue eyes. You probably can see in her picture. She had these just flaming blue eyes that knocked everybody over. She was the life of the party, very outgoing, full of self-esteem. And the last person you would have thought would have died in this horrible, horrible way. So it can affect anybody. Nobody is immune from it.
No, Nobody is immune from it. I'm dealing with the opioid crisis here in Tennessee, and nobody's immune from it. I mean, it's hitting people in wealthy communities and poor communities. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It crosses all these boundaries.
alcoholism is like it's like a meteor. It doesn't care
No.
who or what you are.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Now, I know you live in Southern California, and
Right.
I'm very jealous because I do love to have good food every now and then. And I do speak out in Southern California quite often. I get to San Diego quite often. It's absolutely stunning. I think it's paradise on earth. So what is your favorite restaurant in SoCal the next time I'm out on the West Coast?
There's a couple things. Recently, because my girlfriend now, she's actually from China,
Uh-huh.
which is a complete different than Amanda, but she lived in Japan for a number of years, and she's really into sushi, and subsequently I'm really into sushi too. In Temecula specifically, there's this place called Firefish. I think it's the best sushi restaurant I think I've ever been to. They make it in front of you. It's fresh. I mean, it seems like the fish and everything they used was probably swimming that morning. It's just really good, really good.
I'm really jealous.
Yeah. The other place is when I went to college in San Bernardino, there's this place, it was a little hole in the wall. It's called Rosa Maria's Drive-In. And it was a Mexican restaurant. And it looked like a garage, but they had the best Mexican food I've ever had. It was a like fourth generation family that made this. I mean, the tortillas were probably made an hour before, everything was just wonderful. Rosa Maria's, I think it's on East Street in San Bernardino. So it was near the campus. Best Mexican food I'd ever had. Yeah.
Rosa Maria's. I'm going to have to definitely give that a shot. And the
Right.
Firefish, I'm all about it. Here living in Nashville, I'm landlocked and I love sushi too. But
Right.
the sushi is not good. I mean, this is sushi that's been, hanging around for 3 days. It's been sitting at the gas station and it's not good.
Yeah, if you go to a sushi store and the guys making the sushi are not of Asian descent, probably walk out.
Hit the exit.
Good time
It's
to walk
not
out.
the right place. Oh man. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your story here. I think this is really good for our college students to listen to. So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you, if they want to go and buy your book, it's called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale. Maybe they want to invite you to speak on their college campus about alcohol abuse prevention. Where should they go to connect with you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website. It's amandacautionarytale.com. You can go there and pre-order the book. The book's come out in September. We've got quite a few pre-orders. It's getting exciting. You can also reach me Facebook, Andrew Culkin, LinkedIn, Twitter. It's the same name for everything.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much for sharing this. I think you've done a lot of good here today. I know a lot of our college students are going to listen, and I really want them to share it with other students. I know that there are members of their fraternity, members of their sorority that they care about, other college students that they go to school with, that I think they can forward this as kind of that cautionary tale to say, listen, let's get some help and let's get this fixed now before it becomes a chronic problem. So I really appreciate you sharing your story today, Andrew.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate being here. I just want to help people to, find it before it gets out of hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of good work. So thank you for sharing that story. To our listeners, please like and share Andrew's story. And we hope that you've enjoyed it. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we are going to see you next time.